Whoops. Merry freaking Christmas. What's going on, law-abiding people? I'm Know Nothing Attorney. I know nothing, so you can too. Because it's only in embracing that we know nothing that we can actually learn anything. And that's what we do every single night. Slash every single day, but generally it's night. So that's what we're doing here tonight. We have been working on, for the past few days, the very, very beginnings, I want to say of the script, but like we haven't even started working on a script yet. We are working on research for our next video, which is delving into the idea, like broadly, Trump derangement syndrome and addressing it as like a question of, is that a thing? How do we determine whether that's a thing? And coming from the angle of, if that's a thing, when did it start? When did people start treating him unfairly? So we're going to delve in deep on all of the things that make him just the worst of people, and going back in time to see when all those things happen, see how far back we have to go before we find the place where just the public just started treating him unfairly. And it's Maddie. Maddie! Classic childhood. What's classic childhood? Tuning into Know Nothing Attorney on Christmas Day? Hi, hi. Trump is classic childhood? We had different childhoods. There we go. Oh. I guess so. I mean, he had to start in his brother's shadow, right? Before his dad decided he hated his eldest son. Well, I was just gonna launch straight into the research, Maddie. You want to tell me about Christmas? Well, for sure. For sure. Oh, so you mean like Trump grew up knowing his family was hated. Got it. Oh, it was fine. Got it. Got it. I figured it out. I'm a puzzle guy. Yeah, mine was fine. Got to see some friends, and that was really nice. By the time I got my daughter home, she was basically already asleep. So she got to open her presents and then went to bed. So bougie. What's a stiff bear? Stiff? Wow. That's pretty bougie. Did you get her this $2,000 one? Evil Alien Robot. Man, y'all tuning in like real fast when I start up. I love having y'all here. Evil Alien Robot, how was your Christmas if you celebrate it? I feel like I asked and you said you did. You do. I'll go ahead and put these up while we're just chatting. And I'll move over here. Hell yeah, nap. I took a 2.5-hour bike ride. It was wonderful. So nice. The roads were not busy. I could go around wherever I wanted. Maddie, I tried listening to was it the Road to Unfreedom? I think I realized today like what my issue with listening to or reading nonfiction is. And it's like my neurodivergent brain has a hard time listening to people's opinions, which is weird. And I know a lot of it is conveying fact, but it's conveying editorialized fact, and like it's presented in a dramatic way, in a way that's meant to inspire feeling, which is like, I'm not being unfair. I know that's how I present stuff too, like in my 30-minute video, but like all I want are facts. It was narrated by the author. And I don't know, it can make it very hard to learn stuff, because the best way to learn stuff is by people who are experts in it. And when the people are experts are in it, like they want to share what they've learned and they want to present it in a way that they feel like is engaging or meaningful. And if my brain can't process that, because it's like, I think I shared the other day when I realized like why I have a lot of anxiety shopping, and it's because I feel like I hear all of the voices that go into every product, and all the voices are trying to lie to me to get me to buy the thing. You're the audience for this thing. You need this thing. this thing is better than its competitors and this is worth its price. I do that with, I guess, everything. So that sucks. I would love to. Terrible media presence. You think that's it? You think it's just that, like, he's not the one to listen to? I mean, it's also a thing where it's like when I grew up, like, people would ask, like, who's your hero? Like, they'd give you that question in school, and I'd always be like, that's such a weird question. I don't have heroes. Other people are just normal people. Why would they be a hero? They're just a human being. I got a stupid, weird brain. It's not, is TDS real? Because I mean, if I were asked directly, I would say TDS is absolutely 100% real. It's just not the left that experiences it. But I'm entertaining the question of whether people suffer from TDS on the left and treat Trump unfairly. And I'm saying, what if we analyzed that from, like, a legitimate, like, analytical point of view? We just took it down to facts, boiled it down, didn't have any of the emotion of either side on the question. And really, the hidden point of the video is, if you're watching this video, I imagine that you're already at the stage of wondering what the fuck is going on with Trump. So let me tell you, this is what's going on with Trump, and this is who he has always been, and you could have always seen it if you had been willing to look. I also came up with a fun thought experiment last night. I don't know how likely it is that I could pull it out in a conversation. But y'all want to run through it with me real quick? I'm gonna run y'all through a thought experiment. This is for it's only to be pulled out on people with a religiosity problem. Pull it out on the religious folk. Because the perplexing problem of asking somebody to examine their own religiosity is, how do you get them to step outside themselves? There is something really wrong with him. But the worst problem is that there's something wrong with people who don't see something wrong with him. I'm less worried about him than I am about those people. Because those people can elect any number of Donald Trumps. We need to relearn how to... What's the word I'm looking for? We need to relearn discernment. And we need to relearn how we order our values when it comes to how we select leaders. You think there's, like, something neurologically wrong with him? That's a good bet. I'm hesitant to say that. I mean, I know I've said something similar before. Like, I boiled it down to, there are either people who have a pro-social humanitarian core value, who have confused, unexamined presuppositions built on top of it, or you have people that have a neurological problem. But now, like, with somebody else saying it to me, I'm sitting here going, well, I don't want to discount the possibility that somebody's just an evil son of a bitch. Oh, you mean like he's downsliding? He's falling apart neurologically? If the yacht story's real, I don't know if you can backslide from that. Yeah, it's a major cognitive dissonance, which is kind of the same thing I was dealing with the religiosity problem. It's like, how do you get someone to analyze their own religiosity? How do you get them to examine their own cult-like behavior? And I had a thought experiment a while back that was like dealing with a really weird Sam's Club employee that was walking them through the steps of, would you trust this Sam's Club employee? It was like all related to Donald Trump. But yeah. This where is it? Yeah, here it is. Okay. I wrote down the thought experiment because I was worried I was going to forget it. First I ask, you guys willing to walk through a thought experiment with me? Okay. Come with me. We're going to get into our mind palaces by going into my lab. You see, I'm a scientist. We do research here, and we do some human experiments. I know that's a little yikes, but we're in an imaginary lab, so it's okay to test out how people behave in odd situations, right? Yeah? So follow me. Over here. Over here we have a bunch of people, much like your demographic. Your age, your sex, your socioeconomic class. And these guys, they're odd. These guys that we research. They all pick, each of them, a different object to stab themselves in the hands with. And they'll sit there and they'll do it all day. Can you believe that? We sit here and we examine them, we watch them, we study these people who are just stabbing themselves in the hand with random objects. We're interested in one point specifically right now, and that's see this one, he's stabbing his hand with scissors because he thinks there's a thread in his body that will free him to walk out of the room when it's cut. So he keeps trying to cut it. And this other one is stabbing their hand with a stick because when he found the stick pointed out to him that he was starving, and that if he lets it use his blood as nutrients, it will grow a fruit that is the only food that won't poison him. And the third one, well, they just have a voice, they just heard a voice on the phone tell them to stab themselves in the hand with a power drill, or their mom will die. And then you ask, how does all of that strike you? And the person's going to think this is the weirdest thing in the world. I don't know. I mean, everybody, I'm sure, would have a different reaction when you ask them how it strikes them. So then we walk them down a couple more specific examples. All right, we have this guy down here who's stabbing himself in the hand with a spork simply because he thinks people die if they don't do that. What do you think he would do if he looked up and saw us standing here not stabbing our hand with a spork? It's interesting to try to think how that would work out. Would he rationalize it to himself? Would he think we are going to die? Surely we'll die any moment. Would he think that he should look away, or he might be tricked into not stabbing himself in the hand with a spork? Would he think he can't stop stabbing himself in the hand with a spork? Whichever. But then we get to this last one down here. He is stabbing himself in the hand with the pointy end of a hairbrush. But he doesn't think of it as stabbing himself. He doesn't think he is stabbing himself. He just sees the other end of the hairbrush as a second aesthetic function of the device. With one end of the device, you brush your hair. This is just the thing you do with the other end of the hairbrush. It's not a question, it's just a thing you do. And then you conclude by saying, why are you stabbing yourself in the hand with a holy text? Because they have just walked through this whole process with you, and they see all these people as doing the most insane shit. They all have internal logic that makes sense to them. None of them can step outside of their internal logic, and you have just given them all these opportunities to say, how would I intervene with this person? How would I stop this person from stabbing themselves in the hand because they are injuring themselves? But they all have this internal logic that makes it a consistent, logical thing to do. And now I'm asking you to analyze the same thing that you haven't had the opportunity to step outside of yourself and think. I don't know if it's a good way to do it. But it's the most challenging thing to get someone to step out of their own internal logic that they haven't had the opportunity to examine, because if you're in it, you can't. Anyway, I'm sure that was enthralling. I think I had another couple of thoughts about it after that, but I think you just leave them with that too. You don't have to press them any farther. You just... Why are you stabbing yourself in the hand with a holy text? Done with the conversation. And if they still didn't get it at that point, you could lead them to, like, ask whatever questions you want. We're in the lab space. You can try to talk to these people. You can try to intervene. Ask me what would happen if you did whatever. I'll tell you what happens if you try to intervene with any of these people. I know what happens. The hardest thing about the thought experiment is, like, you have to know this person is religious, and then to know that, you have to have discussed it, and then how do you bring up this thought experiment without it being ruined already if you discussed it? And one thing I thought, I was like, if we can just get one subject away from religion, then I can pop back to this and go, all right, I've got a weird bodily autonomy theory for you. You want to talk about bodily autonomy? And then they'll think this whole thing is about bodily autonomy until you get to the end of it. And then if they say, hey, you lied, you thought this was about bodily autonomy, you can be like, I'm sorry, are you saying that religion doesn't restrain what people do with their bodies? Oh, I did have a sixth hand stabber. Because I wanted to deal with the fear of the intervener, because that's another thing that religion does. It causes fear of interveners. So, ask them if they want to help any of these people, and then ask them what they suggest we do for a person who has a little handbag, telling them that the moment anyone convinces them to stop stabbing themselves in the hand with a paperclip, all of his fingers and toes will be painfully ripped off and eaten. How do you help that person? And the other benefit of a thought experiment like that is it humanizes the atheist, which is not something they're used to. They have been in the shoes of the atheist for the entire thought experiment, and they don't realize that until the end. And now suddenly they're like, oh, is the atheist just wanting to help? Is that what's happening? They're wanting to stop people from stabbing themselves in the hand, and that's me? Or at least how they see me? I'm trying to remember what it was. I think I was listening to... I think it was Parker Get a Job. I think he debated somebody recently that kind of... Maybe it was Joe Vaughn. I don't know. They were debating somebody on religion, and the person was like, you're just doing this because you hate religion. You're doing it because you hate religion. You hate religious people. And they were like, I don't hate them at all. Like, I'm concerned about them. Like, I wish that I could help them figure this out. And by the end of the conversation, the person was just like, whoa, wait, you actually just have, like, benevolent feelings about this? That's so... I can't... Like, they couldn't process that. They were so confused. Like, it was starting to break through to them that this person legitimately just wants to help a person, and they don't hate their religion. They don't hate them for being religious. They just want to help. They have to want to learn. I think they need to see an appeal in learning new information and changing your mind. But that's the problem, is, like, I hate sitting back and accepting you have to wait for them to be willing to learn. Because the problem with that is the people who instilled all those beliefs in them didn't wait. They were extremely proactive. They built in systems to fend off people who would help them. They built in systems to fend off their own internal desire to learn. So, like, they literally can't want to learn. They are unable to do that. Like, the worst cases. The worst cases, they are literally unable to have the desire to learn because it has been so programmed into them that, like, if you learn in this way, you are going to die. Like, in short, that's what's going to happen. You are opening yourself up to Satan. Satan will spiritually kill you. You will be tortured forever because you learned something. So I would rather not learn, they think. It reminds me of the Catherine Grove who left the Church of Wells, the cult that I dealt with. And she was driving away from the cult. She was trying to get back home. And she had to stop her car and pull over on the side of the road and, like, duck her head and cover her head because she knew that she was just going to be struck down dead in the moment for having turned her back on God. In the Church of Wells, they teach you that because you willingly came into the fold and brought onto yourself the special protection of God, by leaving, you are willingly removing that protection from yourself, so Satan has even greater access to you than he does to normal people. So if you leave the Church of Wells, you will die. You will be killed by Satan. Yeah, it takes like a weird level of patience and compassion. All you can do is plant seeds. And that's why, like, with that thought experiment, I would leave it off at, why is that what you're doing? And then just leave it. Or, in the alternative, let them explore the thought experiment as long as they want to until they realize what it's actually about. And then they can walk away without you pressing them any further. Do you know what Donald's dad's full name is? No, I just know Fred Trump. And I'm about ready to get into working, guys. I'm happy to work. Evil Alien Robot, if you know any conservatives, I know you're dying for me to, like, actually get the chance to talk to a conservative on live. If you know any, you're welcome to throw them to the wolves over here. Christ? Are you serious? Aliana! I finally started streaming at a time that you could make it in. You're not derailing anything, Maddie. We don't take shit seriously here. Besides everything else, I'm ADHD. So I am totally happy to just lose track of a topic and go somewhere else. Merry Crisis! I hadn't heard that one yet. That's pretty fucking good. I love that. Man, I wish the conservatives I knew were brave enough to call any debate show. Well, if you ever get the chance to talk to them, you can let them know that I blatantly, like, offer up two modes. Like, I can debate people or I can just talk to people. I'm the chillest fucking dude there is. Let them know that I had a pleasant conversation with a Nazi. Which, sometimes I worry that sounds bad, but being mad at Nazis doesn't change the fact that there are Nazis. Everybody else is doing the job of being mad at them. I can do a different job, and I can try to help them pivot. Having a pleasant conversation with a Nazi, I mean, before I started this channel and, like, developed the philosophy behind it, I may have sat there and go, why are you having a pleasant conversation with a Nazi? That sounds like a really shitty thing to do from your perspective. I don't know what to feel about you right now. Okay, y'all ready to get into the exciting world of Donald Trump sexual abuse claims? We were still on E. Jean Carroll because we were moving slowly. I'll try to be more persistent in my pursuit of completing this thingamajiggy. Yep, that's how serious I'm taking it. I'm calling it a thingamajiggy. Alright, where are we? We had compiled a little bit of evidence from the E. Jean Carroll case. We know that the E. Jean Carroll case was at first a defamation claim because she published an article and then she published a book, and then Trump called her a liar in public. So she filed a defamation claim, at which point the Department of Justice tried to step in and say that when he called her a liar for her rape claims in the public eye, he was acting in his presidential duty when he said that. So they were trying to get involved in the case. She had to prove sexual assault to make it a valid defamation claim. And then after New York changed the law to allow sexual assault victims to sue in civil court if the criminal statute of limitations had passed, she filed a separate suit under Carroll versus Trump 2, which was a sexual assault specific claim. That's where we were at. Oh, this was a new one that I liked. I liked that Trump claimed that he usually had security guards with him, which was part of his claim that this couldn't have been a true story because there would have been security guards there when he supposedly did the horrible thing. Problem was, the dude was unable to name any guards that were working for him at the time, which can be taken one of two ways. Either the whole thing's a lie, or he's just a really shitty employer. Probably both of those are true. You think gay marriage should be banned? Arrow Pulsner. Yeah, here it comes. Sounds like classic Trump, yeah. Arrow Pulsner, how are you doing tonight? Yeah, I'm sure he doesn't know most of his employees' names, for sure. But, I mean, in terms of evidence, I'm sure he would be able to pull some up if it were true. My evening's going okay. It's an alright Christmas. Do you celebrate Christmas? Was yours alright? Arrow Pulsner, you got a 10-year-old account. That seems alright. That seems okay. Trustworthy enough. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. Arrow Pulsner, are you able to get on Discord and have a voice chat? Hell no, why? It's hard for me to do my usual, like, back and forth where I get to know you as a person, to talk about your issues with gay marriage when we can't talk. Way too drunk for this shit. Well, what do you think I'm gonna do? I'm not here to put you down. I'm not here to win a debate. I always ask people whether they agree that there's no such thing as winning a debate. I also offer 2 modes. Here, let me switch over to the random work scene. I offer debate or casual chat. We can have a casual chat. Good job, buddy. You are the liquor. Who's doing a good job? What was a misleading statement? Oh. Welcome in. I am the Liquor. How are you doing tonight? That's interesting. I mean, it's not a position I haven't heard before. I mean, it was something we examined in law school. It was like, why should the government have any involvement at all in people's relationships? All right, got the drunks in here. Let's go. Let's go. Oh man, I took the last of my wine to the Christmas party tonight. I wish I had a bottle of wine to share with you guys. Well, I assume if that's their stance, Maddie, that they agree that there should be no government involvement in straight marriages. But I mean, you know, it's a worthwhile question. Oh, well, thank you. I am the Liquor. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be sharing my my address online. You know, technically I wouldn't be surprised. People do hold all sorts of random ass positions, so it's whatever. Arrow Pulsioner, I'll go ahead and ask Maddie's question out loud. Would you disagree with the government having any involvement in straight marriages? Okay. So it sounds like you wouldn't ban gay marriages. You just want everybody to have their own relationships and manage their own long-term relationships in whatever way they would. That's the greatest compliment I've ever had in my life. You're gonna kill me. Okay. Well, damn. You got us all excited about the possibility of having a conversation with a conservative up in here. You have no idea. Evil Alien Robot has been dying to, have the opportunity to see me debate somebody. Or have a casual chat with somebody, as it may be. Well, Arrow Pulsioner or I Am the Liquor, do either of you identify as a conservative in any way? Okay. Gay marriage isn't one. Well, you are welcome to watch the scrolling debate topic slides and see if there's anything that you would disagree with. I'm happy to talk about anything, and if you come up here drunk, I'm not going to be harsh on you. I'm not going to push you into any corners. I'm not going to try to trick you. I just want to have an honest conversation. I have alternative means of getting into an altered mental state. If you would rather I do that, then we can be at least on some kind of level playing field. You don't consider libertarian to be conservative? Just goes to show that libertarians never agree on what they mean. That's not true, Evil Alien Robot. They all just mean different things by the word libertarian. Oh, well, that's very sweet, Arrow Pulsioner. But I mean, part of my whole goal with this is to bring the knowledge that, law school and being an attorney gives people and bring it to normal people, because I feel like my profession is very bad at that. We do a very bad job. Yeah, almost always. I agree. Okay, well, you say again. I want to approach this from a different perspective, Arrow Pulsioner. You say that there's nothing level about this. Is there something fundamentally different about your brain and my brain that makes it so that I could go through the steps of going to law school and you couldn't? I feel like if you put the effort into it, you could literally change the way that you thought about things the same way I had to go through law school. You can walk through anything. How has law school affected your political beliefs? Well, it's an interesting question. As I've said, I've told the story a couple times in the past week. I used to be a fundy Christian conservative. Now, I was a never Trump conservative because I'm a never piece of shit as a leader person. So I was flabbergasted at the number of people that were willing to take him on as the conservative candidate, as the Republican candidate. But when he came into power, I was very staunchly conservative. I didn't question like any conservative positions. Like I didn't feel like any of them were wrong in any way. Law school is sanctioned torture. It totally depends on what law school you go to. I don't know. It's sanctioned torture in the same way that having a really good workout that makes you sore is torture. Like it does literally hurt your body, or it does literally hurt your mind, but sometimes that's what you want to do to improve the tool that you've got. So I was that was 2016. I had a 1-year-old daughter. I cried the night Trump was elected as a conservative. I was very upset about what it meant for my daughter. And then trying to remember like what order things happened. I started watching Steven Universe before I went to law school, and that kind of gave me a different perspective on same-sex relationships. It gave me a different perspective on gender identity, and I was just like, oh, so this is what they mean from their perspective. When they tell stories about this, this is what they think about. This is how they are portraying that. And this is actually a good show. I don't mind this show at all. This is very wholesome. And from there, I started to, like, I guess I knew enough about gender that I started debating people on Reddit as a conservative. I started debating other conservatives going, if you're going to have these conversations about gender, you can at least get the facts right. So maybe change what thing you're saying, because the thing you're saying just sounds stupid. And I kind of went down the rabbit hole and started defending, like, I started to learn more about gender and sex. And so I started having more reasons to talk to conservatives and be like, hey, you could at least get these facts right. And I just kind of fell down the rabbit hole and ended up being like a staunch defender of trans rights on the internet. And then I went to law school, started in 2018. All conservatives are a joke. Sorry. That's a little harsh. I would consider myself left-leaning on most positions, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But to finish answering the question on how law school impacted my political views, I would say they didn't directly at all. But what changed was, I mean, because I was still going, I went to in Austin, I went to what was that? A protest, a demonstration. It was a pro impeachment demonstration after the Ukraine call. And I went as a conservative to be part of the group, be part of the crowd, to be a conservative with a sign explaining that I'm a conservative and I am supporting impeaching Donald Trump in that moment. And I had so many great conversations that night. Like the number of people who were being supportive of me, like being a conservative and having that position, nobody expected that. So that was really nice. I also, Owen Schroyer. I had no idea who Owen Schroyer was. And Owen Schroyer came to that protest. And now this is totally off topic of me answering the question, but I'm remembering that protest and now it's coming back to me. Owen Schroyer was part of InfoWars? And I didn't know who that guy was. And he showed up with a whole retinue, had cameramen, had a crew, they all came up to the opposite side of the bars dividing the protest line, and they started like interviewing people, and like Owen was proving how much he knew about the facts and shutting people down and whatnot. And I was like, well, it's obvious all these people don't have all the details, but I'm in law school and I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I even wrote a timeline on the Ukraine call and how it was every single way it was wrong. I had like a step-by-step, like a 13-point list about it was wrong because A, and then it was wrong because it was A and B, and then it was wrong because A, B, and C. And like, it was so many things wrong with the Ukraine call. And so I got to step up to the plate with Owen Schroyer, and he ended up challenging me. It was something about the timing of the legislative appropriations for Ukraine and the deadline for that. It was a timing issue, and he was like, no, it was not that way. And I was like, dude, I literally made a timeline. You want me to bring my timeline up? I will show you exactly when shit happened. And he was like, okay, yeah, sure. And so I got on my phone, I started pulling up the timeline, and then he just looked at his camera guys and were like, all right, guys, let's get out of here. I'm like, what? It's that easy? Is it really that easy? Just crush a guy so hard he bails on the protest? Okay. Anyway, back to law school. So I was conservative. I would say up until maybe the last year of law school, I started questioning where I was at on the political spectrum. But the thing with what law school did is it forced me to change how I think about things. Not what I think, but how I think about stuff. You are required to go into the nuance of the nuance of the nuance of the nuance, because a litigator's job, at a minimum, a litigator's job is to look at a body of law that is completely settled. Completely settled. Like, there's no way that there's a question left in this body of law to say, like, my guy should win this case. Like, if my guy is definitely going to lose this case based on the body of law, my job is still to look at his case and go, how is this different than every other case that came before it? You have to learn how to discern nuance where you haven't seen it before. You also have to learn how to think, if A, then B, if B, then C, if C, then D, and you cannot skip any steps. I have forgotten how easy it was before law school to just have a if A, then D mentality, just because that's the world you're used to. You're not used to examining all the steps in between. People are just on board with the idea that if A, then D. You have to completely relearn this stuff to go through law school and be successful. And so that's what changed in me. And it got me to the point where, like, I could apply that to the trans rights issue question and go, what else have I been missing? Like, what else am I just making a bunch of assumptions about that are wrong? And that is why I would say I'm a lefty. To loop back around to, would you say you're lefty on, where was the question? Where'd it go? Are you left-leaning on all/most positions? I would say, yes, I am. And the reason for that, at least as far as I've seen, and I'm happy to be proven wrong on this, I'm no nothing attorney. I can always be wrong. I never claim to know, or if I do claim I know, I at least try to understand that what I mean is, I have a high degree of confidence. That's what I'm claiming. But a high degree of confidence has room to be allowed to be proven wrong. This comes down to the way I perceive the left and the right, as far as if you broke down the differentiating factor between the two sides into one word. On the left, I guess to you guys over here, on the left, the main issue is equality. It doesn't matter what the issue is, the people are concerned with the idea of how do we make sure that all people are treated equal in this case. Now, the issue with that is it introduces a question. The question is, how do you prove that they're not equal? I want to know, are they equal or not? Show me that they're not equal. Once you show me, then I will support your position. If you go to the right, the one word term that I can understand is propriety. The right measures things by how proper things are. This is the way things should be. I support this position because we all just accept that that is virtuous or that is moral. That is why we accept this position. The problem is nobody agrees on what that is. They just work together so long as they don't butt heads with each other. And the other problem with it is you can't prove it. So the right is not concerned with proving their side, generally. And once you get them to a point where you have disproven their side, they just shut down. They are not willing to entertain it anymore. So the question of evidence, and again, happy to be proven wrong on this. I am willing to have a conversation with somebody that can show me the evidence that shows that the right is right and the left is wrong. But that's not how I tend to see things go. The right gets mad at evidence. They get mad at nuance. What is the focus in my law degree? Focus in my law degree? Like, my practice? Because there aren't really focuses in law degrees, at least not in the US, or at least not in the law schools I'm familiar with. I can tell you what I spent a lot of time studying. I spent most of my time studying constitutional law because I thought that was the coolest thing. I love constitutional law. MAGA, what is it? What? What did I miss? Oh wow, Sam's first time here. Yeah, we've got a few people in tonight that are new. I Am the Liquor is new. Arrow Pulsioner's new. Sorry to out people. Sam's new. LP Parker is new. I'm happy to have everybody new in here. Welcome. I'm surprised to have this kind of Christmas evening. I love having everybody here, and I'm sorry that like I have the work screen up and there's nothing really going on right now. I'm just engaging with the chat at the moment. I can jump back to this so long as we're just chatting. I just wanted to show earlier that like I welcome two different modes of conversing when we talk about stuff on this channel. You are welcome to tell me you want to have a debate. The one piece of debate content that I have out there up on YouTube is a 3-minute short where a guy came in hot and they were accusing me of propaganda and all this shit. So I'm just like, hey, you've made it clear what kind of attitude you want to have. I am happy to meet you with the same kind of attitude. And it's a fun 3-minute short. I love that 3-minute short. I don't know that I will ever forget that one. It's a treasure to me. But that's not usually my mode. My mode is I want to talk to people. That's what I care about. I have a genuine belief that even the people I disagree with, at their core, like even if I disagree with them to such a degree that I believe that the outward positions they hold are monstrous. I lost a friendship because I told a friend that his positions are monstrous. He told me when he was upset with me later, he's like, you told me I was a monster. I'm like, no, dude, I don't think you're a monster. I think those positions specifically are monstrous. And I would hope that you would analyze them and change them. I know that some people would not see a difference between those two statements. But even people with positions they hold that I would consider to be monstrous, I think at their core, they have a pro-social, humanitarian ideal in there that is driving it. And so I'm not here to be mad at anybody. I'm not here to hate on anybody. I'm here to have a good conversation. Figure out what the hell is going on with somebody in their mind, what they care about. That's what matters to me. You invited Sam a few days ago, another streamer. Hell yeah. I didn't call her a bitch. I said she was acting like a bitch. I'm sorry you felt that way. Like con law like a nerd. I love con law like a nerd. It's true. This is the last girl that I had a couple dates with. She watched my 30-minute video before she went on the date, and I was like, well, hell, she knows exactly what kind of nerd I am. I'm down for this first date. Let's go. like estates or PA? What? Or criminal law? Yeah. What is the acronym I'm missing with PA? Yep, all here on Maddie Holmes' recommendation. You're here, or you and other people are here on Maddie's recommendation? Maddie is going to be the key to my success because she's making like connections with me for other people, like with other people. I'm gonna do a collab here in a couple of weeks. I'm amazed that I even have the potential to do a collab. I mean, I guess he's a bit smaller of a channel too, but not as small as I am. But Echoplex Media. I'm going to be on Echoplex Media in a couple of weeks talking about letting him disagree with me on why we need a constitutional convention. And that's going to be what I'm pushing. I'm happy to hear his thoughts on why I'm an idiot. Let's go. I'm always happy to be told I'm an idiot. I lost a friend because I dared tell him that I thought if he was down on his luck, he's take the handouts from the government to feed him and his family. I thought if he was down on his luck, he would take the handouts. Well, yeah, okay. Wow, what a harsh stance. What's a handout from the government? I don't know anymore. We don't want to even give out SNAP anymore. Yeah. And I always love having conversations with my my MAGA coworker because I push her a little bit because I know her, and we were having a conversation like earlier this week where I was at the point where I was just like amazing me imagining that there should be a baseline level of capacity. Like a baseline level of life that we guarantee people. Being the most powerful, wealthy country in the world, you would think we could offer a baseline without it being any kind of hindrance to us. That shouldn't be a challenge. And like the way I talked about it, she just kind of sat there and was like, I'm like, see, like if we just talk about the shit, it's not that complicated. What is my stance on the Second Amendment? That is probably my most complicated stance, and I am still uncertain on how I feel about it. My immediate reaction when thinking about the Second Amendment is Heller was decided wrongly. It's a stupid Supreme Court decision. The independent right to bear arms is only as old as 2008. The independent right, the right for an individual to keep and bear arms, did not exist before 2008. It was invented whole cloth by the Supreme Court. So at that point, I'm sitting here going like, what is my opinion supposed to be on the Second Amendment? Because I recognize that part of American tradition and American culture is firearms. Like hunting is an American pastime, and hell, just shooting for sport is itself an American pastime. Personally, I wish I could get everybody on board with this is not a worthwhile pastime if it means that more people die. I find it frustrating that I can't get everybody on that same page. So from a purely political point, like, if you're asking my point of view, that's my point of view. Nobody should own guns. From a political stance, I am happy to say there should be some level of gun ownership protected to maintain the political balance, the security that people feel having guns, the security they feel having that be part of American culture. But I would hope that we could come together to figure out a way, like if we were to approach the Second Amendment in a constitutional convention, my baseline would be, don't touch it, because we have so much other shit to work on. Don't touch it. But if we want to breach the subject, I hope what you and I could do is come to an agreement on if we were to come up with a way to measure the harm inflicted by maintaining this, like what measures could we agree on that if we were to make this determination, you and I could agree we should take these measures. So it's a very gradual, piecemeal framework that I have in my head about how we would handle the Second Amendment. The first you've heard on that, can you elaborate on Heller being poorly decided? Yeah, we can get into that in just a second. I would disagree with you that there's no rational basis for denying a right to abortion. If abortion is murder and murder is wrong, then allowing abortion is wrong. There's no rational basis for feeling like abortion is murder. I don't agree with that stance, but that seems a rational stance, assuming... Well, you can have an internally rational reason to believe that abortion is murder. You can hold that position internally and rationally, but you cannot hold someone else to it rationally because there is no external logic that can be consistent that you could make another believe if they are solely rooted in logic. Do I support watermelon? Do I support Palestine? Well, that's one of those. That's an example of a thing where I'd be like, well, there's more nuance to that than we're giving it credit for. I would want to know more about your question. Like, what do you mean by support Palestine? I support ceasing killing people in Palestine. So only the government should own guns? Yes, only the regulated part of society should own guns. Yeah. From my political stance, I think everyone needs to own guns to maintain political balance. Personal ownership of guns doesn't do anything for political balance. It does not. That is a fiction. Where am I from? I'm from Austin, Texas. Guns should be hella regulated. They are. No, they are not. It's almost impossible now. You can 3D print guns with plastic. Can't stop the signal, baby. Do you support Palestine? I've shot a few 3D printed guns. They function just as well as the real thing. If I remember correctly, there was a 3D printed gun involved in the Luigi Mangione case, wasn't there? I don't know if it was the one that was used for the killing. I think he was found with one. Anybody want to correct me on that? Yeah, that's wild. Okay, am I against... Yes, I'm against genocide. Do you believe that every human being deserves human rights and not be starved to death? Yes. Irrelevant of color or religion or ethnicity? Yes. I do. But you also have to understand that some people, when they say, do you support Palestine, are including other things they're not saying when they say, do you support Palestine? Like, oh, you support October 7th? No. And whereas, if we want to get into nuance, I would say that both Israel and Hamas are culpable in the things that have happened, but I would definitely say that Israel is more culpable because they are the ones that have power. If you have power, you have the responsibility to use that power to do good things. Israel does not use their power that way. Nobody's saying that 5-year-old children are Hamas. Ayana, I feel like you're coming in with a hot temper. I don't know if I'm right there. I might just be reading too much into your messages. I feel like you're coming in with a hot temper and you are judging things that are not accurate. I am not saying that 5-year-old children are Hamas. I am literally talking about the organization. Sure, you're against genocide until some alien race shows and it's us or them. Well, then at that case, that wouldn't be genocide. The killing of a group that is trying to genocide you isn't a genocide. Surprise. England has had a gun ban for a long time, and people are still killed in violent crimes, i.e. And if I remember correctly, LP Parker, America's stabbing rate is higher than England's. I have a low to mid degree of confidence in that. But I believe I have heard that statistic before. Is that correct? I said Ayana. Evil alien robot, don't speak for me. I do not give short answers. Short answers are lies. Short answers are obfuscations. LP Parker, that's not how statistics work. I said we have a higher stabbing rate. That means it's measured per capita. No, okay, now I'm remembering the I think it was Super Jesus who was in here, our friendly neighborhood ethno-nationalist. Sorry, no, ultra-nationalist, not ethno-nationalist. He would say that we just need to get everyone out of here who isn't an American and then never change that. It is just Americans now. I think it was him that brought up Japan and their shooting their violence rate or whatever it was, and he said, well, that's because they have a more homogenous society. And I said, no, it's because there are less Christians there. And he goes, what? How do you mean? How can you say that? I was like, it has as much backing as the thing you said. I don't know what persecuting the death of a species to its end isn't genocide just because it's a self-defensive person. Well, no, hold on. Now you are talking about genocide. So if an alien species attacks us and we attack the alien species back, do we need to wipe them out? It's fine, dude. Did you hear me judge? I didn't judge. I told you. Everybody in here is on something. I don't know if it's a thing to do with Christmas. Like, I want to get on a political stream with a small streamer on Christmas, but, like, I'm going to be on something while I'm doing it. Like, this seems to be our crowd tonight. We are having a good time in Know Nothing Attorneys chat. That's what's going on. Almost identical, but higher. And that's even without getting rid of the guns. So we have the guns and the knives, and we're still stabbing people more than the UK is. We're arguing about aliens because Sam is trying to find some way to say that I support genocide. Not how that works. Billy Blee, I don't think I said hi. Hi, Billy Blee. How are you doing? Knives are illegal in the UK? What length of the knife? Like, how long does the knife have to be for it to be illegal? Merry Crisis. Guns don't kill people, people do. I don't wholly agree with that phrase. There are some things that it's like, for instance, let's take the number one factor for violent crime. The number one indicator of violent crime is socioeconomic status. If you are poor, you are more likely to commit crime. That is just true. It is plain, it is true. It does not mean if you are poor, you will commit crime, but there are factors involved in being poor that lead people to commit more crime. I don't think you can change that by just, I don't know, talking people through it. It seems to be that it is part of the human condition that if you are poor, you're going to do things, you're more likely to do things. The more poor people you have, the more people you will have that do things that are violent. Because people are concerned for themselves. So when you get to a statistical level of like analyzing human beings as measures of occurrences, then there are just things about humans that are true. there are things that we don't want to accept as true because we're like, we have free will, so like you can't just say that's true. But like if you take enough humans and you put enough of them through this system, you're going to end up with the same numbers every time. That just means it's true of humanity. So if you increase the number of guns that people have, and every single time that happens the number of gun deaths goes up, then is it really the guns that kill people? Because it seems like it's part of the human condition that if you have a stick that go boom kill person, that's something that humans do. Only stats I can find are for the stabbing deaths, not stabbings in general, so the stats are still bad. I remember when I was hitchhiking from College Station to Atlanta, I got pulled over by a cop who told me I couldn't have the knife that I had on my hip. Because I couldn't have knives that were over 6 inches long. And I was like, well, I don't know how long this knife is. Is it over 6 inches long? And he was like, yeah, it is. I was like, how do you know? And he was like, I can tell it's over 6 inches long. I'm like, do you have a tape measure? And he goes, I don't have a tape measure in my patrol car. I would have to call another patrol car that has a tape measure. Do I need to do that? And I was like, well, if you're going to take my property, yeah, you better call another patrol car out here, because I don't think, I'm looking at this knife, I don't think it's longer than 6 inches, sure enough. Exactly 6 inches long. They gave me a nice patrol car ride out of their town. I don't think banning guns would get guns out of the hands of criminals to the extent you'd think it would in my experience with criminals and my area study on how they acquire their arms. Sure, I'm not saying that getting rid of guns on its own is the answer. I don't claim to have the answer. I would defer to experts. I would promote doing research on what would be the best way to deal with it. And maybe has already been research done, and people just need to point me to that research. But I imagine, sure, if you make guns illegal, the criminals will still have their guns. They'll still retain their guns. But if you don't ever take that move, then you're never going to start whittling down the number of guns. It will just be... We're basically in an unofficial arms race, where it's like the criminals have more guns, so the people feel more justified in buying guns to defend themselves from criminals. This is an arms race between the public and criminals. And that is not helped by the availability of guns. Crime is a direct result of poverty. I agree. Down with capitalism. The crime right-wingers are concerned about it at least. So you're saying the solution is to deny guns to poor people? What? How? At least if it's a legally owned gun, it's registered, and the owner is made to take safety courses. Much better than a... Whoa, Aliana, where are gun owners required to take safety courses? I'm pretty sure we don't have like the same type of classes that we have for like driver's ed for guns. At least not in every state. And I definitely think we should at least have that. Yeah, not in the US. I was raised palm with is okay. Shall not be infringed seems pretty clear. I am the liquor. Well, let's bring up 2A. I said that we would talk about Heller. Let's bring it up. I haven't done all of my research on Heller, I don't think, but I do have at least one good quote on Heller. And I think it would surprise most people. Let's change this. Dude, I'm always going to look for rationality. Sorry. I'm always willing to believe that people believe the thing that they say, and I will consider it. I'm 19 years old today, and I've held a gun before. You need an FBI background check for a car. Okay, let's get... Second Amendment. Now, window capture. Let's just bring it up right there. Okay, let's just put it up here at the top. All right. Second Amendment. First off, are you at least aware that the question of whether Americans had an individual right to keep and bear arms, are you aware that that was not decided until 2008? I made the claim that it did not exist until 2008. Are you aware that it was not decided until 2008? And I'll bring up Heller while we're talking about it. Hey. Calm down. No, I want the other one. Man, come on. Don't be like that. Nope. There we go. Okay, now I'll go to the other one. 2008, Heller. Now I'll bring up this window. Whoa, what's going on there? I feel like this is broken. Oh, not broken, just dumb. There we go. Okay, I swear that it was not decided. Okay, Austin, the other chatters are Fed posting, so I get to Fed post too. Feel like I've lost, gone off the rails here a little bit, and I've lost track of what's being said in chat. This is new on me. We've got so much chat happening that I can't keep track of all of it. Moving is a right in a car isn't. Yep. This is why sovsits are, well, one of many reasons sovsits are really dumb. Hey, let's calm it down. What's going on? I am the liquor. I'm trying to remember who said what earlier this evening. I'm the liquor. You said you couldn't come up to chat in the Discord. It was Arrow Polzner who initially said they couldn't come up to chat in the Discord because they were drunk. Yeah. But you also can't come up to chat in the Discord? It's so much easier when I can actually just talk to people. It requires a lot less. Also, drunk, but yeah, I don't understand what the problem with being drunk is. Like, I'm not here to beat you. Oh, dude. Okay, what's the best example I give? Okay, y'all ready for an embarrassing one? I was driving by a frat party near campus a few months ago. Driving by a frat party made me have an anxiety attack. That's how shy and anxious I am. So, you're fine. If you want to stay in chat, I get it. That's fine. But also, I am not a scary person to talk to. Well, I'm only debating people to the extent they want to debate. Otherwise, we can just have a conversation. I don't really consider what we're doing right now debating. You asked about the Second Amendment. I'm pulling up the Second Amendment so we can look at it. Am I telling you, no, you're dumb about the Second Amendment? No, how did you not know this? Oh, I'm sorry, did you come up to debate about the Second Amendment and you didn't even know blah, blah, blah? Like, I hate that style of shit. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to talk about stuff. Okay, so first off, the language of the Second Amendment itself. This is the weirdest fucking phrased amendment in the Bill of Rights. There is nothing else that is worded like this. There is a preamble to the amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. If you go look at the other amendments, there is no other amendment that gives this kind of preamble. So it is to be understood that the preamble, what follows in the sentence, especially because we have the structure using commas to say this is a dependent clause to the independent clause, because I'm saying a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, that does not stand on its own. It cannot stand on its own. So it impacts how we are to interpret the rest of the sentence. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state matters to how we interpret the right that follows. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed is because a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. There is no... I've already said that there's no kind of preamble. But what the preamble is doing here is saying that there is an intent to the right. So the right is limited in context as presented to the extent that it serves this cause. I'm a brodozer? Who's a brodozer? Oh, Aliana's a brodozer. Oh my god, what's happening? What are you guys doing in chat? I don't want to look over there. So, this isn't the strongest argument, but it is the most facially visible argument. This is a weirdly phrased amendment, and it has language that is just ignored in its interpretation. There is a reason that this right is to not be infringed. If that reason ceases to exist, we no longer know whether or not the intent was for it to continue to be upheld. Imagine we had a world where there is no need for a militia. Now is there a right? We can't know. On the way this is phrased, it's impossible to know whether that was the intent or not. Now, what follows is the most interesting argument to me that's incredibly frustrating, which makes me hate Heller as a decision, and it makes it not worthwhile, it makes it fraudulent, I think it's just a joke of a decision. There were so many amicus briefs that talked about this phrase right here. I wish I could highlight something. I don't know. The phrase, keep and bear arms. What does that mean? The only reason you know the phrase keep and bear arms is because it has been such a rallying cry since you were a kid. And I'm willing to bet that if you know what keep and bear arms means, at least as far as you know it means, the reason you have any understanding of that phrase at all is because you were raised since the 80s. You would have had to have been a kid in the 80s if you never knew what that meant. If you were an adult in the 70s, this would not nearly, like, you would only know this phrase if you were just familiar with the Bill of Rights in general. But it's not like this was an important phrase that people held on to and it was used in common parlance. That is not the case. You go now? All right, I'll miss you, Aliana. I'm proud of you. Hey, I'm proud of you. And if you have anything you want to tell me that you could use somebody being proud of you with before you go, I'm happy to do that. And that goes for anybody in chat. If you could use anybody being proud of something with you, let me know what you're proud of or want somebody to be proud of. I'll be proud of that, because it's not often we get somebody to invite us to be proud of something with them. Oftentimes we feel ashamed trying to tell people a thing that we are excited about. I'm happy to be proud of something with you. So if you want to tell me something, I'll do that. You're welcome, son. Always happy to have you here, Aliana. Right, so back to my biggest beef with Heller. keep and bear arms was argued by the amicus briefs to be a term of art. And I'm not sure if people are familiar with that phrase, a term of art. A term of art means it is a collection of words forming a phrase that has a very specific meaning in the field it's used in. And so in legal speak, a term of art would be, this is a word that people used when writing laws. This is a term that people used when writing constitutions or anything like that. It's a term that judges would use. It was a legal term. It wasn't the way people just talked. When people used the term keep and bear arms, it was specifically used in the context of a militia regulating those arms as a group, as a state, collectively, not for individual people to have those things and keep and bear them themselves. It was about militiamen. And there were so many examples given by the amicus briefs pointing to historical record to show how keep and bear arms was used. And what was done, who was the author of Heller again? I gotta remember. Roberts. I think it was Roberts. Roberts write it? Majority was written by Scalia, joined by Roberts. Okay. Scalia found a small handful of exceptions to how keep and bear arms had been used around the time that the amendment was written, and just ignored the massive wealth of evidence on how that word was used generally at the time, especially if it were being used by people drafting a constitution to frame a right, and especially when framing that right with a preamble that mentions the use of it for a militia. And he just ignored it. The dissenting opinion raises all of this, and he just goes, I don't know, fuck it. I want there to be an independent right to keep and bear arms. Fuck it. In basic SCOTUS parlance. So that's my main beef with Heller. If I would recommend, if you ever read Heller, read the dissenting opinion first, and then go read the majority opinion. Sounds like a good guy. I mean, that can be your opinion. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong for having that opinion, but he definitely didn't do a good job as a Chief Justice. Or not Justice, I was talking about Roberts there for a second. He didn't do a very good job as a Supreme Court Justice. That is not what your job is in that case. Your job is to interpret the law as it was intended to convey the law as it was written. And that was not that. If you're a libertarian, you say, and you want small government, then you're entitled to think that the government should not interfere with your right to own whatever death components you want to own. But it isn't small government to say that Supreme Court justices can just decide on a whim what the law means. That's not small government. So, good guy? Maybe. Bad Supreme Court justice. Very bad job. That's not originalism. Conservatives like to say that they are originalists. That's not originalism. All right, let's look at Heller. It ruled that the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects an individual's right to keep and bear arms unconnected with service in a militia. That's weird, considering the sentence we just read. For traditionally lawful purposes, such as self-defense within the home, and that the District of Columbia's handgun ban and requirement that lawfully owned rifles and shotguns be kept unloaded and disassembled or bound by a trigger lock violated this guarantee. I mean, those sound like completely reasonable regulations as far as the amendment's concerned. I mean, that sounds completely in line with the amendment. Yep. That does not interfere with your right to be prepared to use your weapon for the purposes of supporting a militia. It's because when the militia calls you, then you can reassemble your gun, you can load your gun, you can use your gun. You do not need to have it ready and prepared, so no right is infringed in this case. It also stated that right to bear arms is not unlimited and that certain... Great, thank you. That was very helpful to say that it's not unlimited. And that certain restrictions on guns and gun ownership were permissible. It was the first Supreme Court case to decide whether the Second Amendment protects an individual right to keep and bear arms for self-defense or whether the right was only intended for state militias. Have I ever had someone to break into my house? Yes, I have, actually. And the police fucking pissed me off. And I know who broke into the house, too. The militia is a group of people, but it's also regulated by the state. Amazing. A militia is not just a random group of people. I was home. So I was moving into a new place when I was living in College Station. Well, I wasn't referring to that language, I am the liquor. I was referring to the fact that that's what a militia is. A militia is regulated by the state. LP Parker, I was moving into a new place in College Station, and I hadn't had plans on when I was going to move in. And I texted the landlord's son who was also living there, and I was like, I'm going to move in today if that's all right. And he's like, yeah, sure. I'm not going to be there, and everybody else is going to be gone for like vacation or whatever, but you can move in. That's fine. And I moved in and found out later that the night before, the guys in my house had held a party, and our neighbors had seen them having a party, and my roommates had waved the guys over and been like, hey, y'all come join us for a drink or two or whatever. And during that exchange, they said, yeah, we're going to be going off on vacation tomorrow. There's not going to be anybody in the house. Cool thing to share with your neighbors. I mean, if you knew your neighbors, like, I mean, maybe it's a good thing to share with neighbors. Neighbors can watch your house, but I guess in this case it wasn't. So I moved into the house. I accidentally left the front door unlocked. I went upstairs and I had the TV on fucking loud as shit. I was playing my PlayStation Portable. It was 2010, I think. And had the TV out on loud as fuck. And I eventually like turned the TV off and there was an alarm going on. I was like, oh, whoa, what the fuck? And I run downstairs. I don't remember whether the front door was open or not, but it seemed like somebody had set off the motion camera downstairs. And so the cops came. I don't remember. Did I call them? Well, the cops showed up and we explained what's going on. They're like, oh, well, sometimes cats trigger the camera or whatever. Like, you don't know. Like, it had just rained, so we would expect that there would be, like, footprints leading up to the door or whatever. I'm like, that makes sense. Like, that makes good sense. Okay, yeah, I would expect there to be, like, wet footprints. And so I went back inside. The police left. And then, like, 10 minutes later, I'm sitting there, it's bugging the shit out of me. I'm like, none of this makes sense. Like, the cat triggered the motion sensor. Why was there even a motion? I don't know what's going on, but I need to go check outside again. And I go and look, and sure enough, not leading from the driveway, but leading from the grass over toward the neighbor's house, there were wet footprints leading up to the door. And I'm just like, what the fuck? I feel like the cops should have, like, looked at this. They're the ones who mentioned it to me. I should feel like you should have at least looked. Some guy had come through the wet grass, up to the front door, opened the door, the alarm went off, and then they ran. And that's the second time that house had been broken into in a month, and I was never told about that. I feel like the landlord's son should have maybe told me when I was moving to this house that somebody had broken into it recently, but why? Whatever. So if it's regulated by the state, then what's the point of the militia? What? this the states have their own militias. Also, if you think that the intent was for the right to be used to fight against a tyrannical government, I hate to break it to you, but George Washington himself led a crackdown on militias. Wait, was it a militia? What was the... What was the name of the rebellion? Let a crackdown on a rebellion against a group of people that were using their own personal firearms. But the fun, I totally forgot to bring up the quote. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, there it is. Ooh, we can watch the interview. Okay. So the entire like independent Second Amendment right to bear arms started with the NRA in the 80s, and they started pushing this interpretation that every person was allowed to own a gun by the Constitution. Let's pull this up. Yo, come on.
Some scholars have argued that the Bill of Rights is still flawed, that some of its provisions need reconsideration.
So this is former Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice Warren Burger. In 1991, when it was still not a popularly held theory that individuals had a Second Amendment right.
That it's overrated. How do you respond to that?
As with anything in this life, it could be better here or there.
Like where, for example?
Well, that's a harder one to answer. If I were writing the Bill of Rights now, there wouldn't be any such thing as the Second Amendment.
Which says?
That a well-regulated militia being necessary for the defense of the state, the people's rights to bear arms.
How cute. He keeps a little pocket constitution.
Pieces of fraud.
Oh.
I repeat the word fraud.
Let's go back.
Militia being necessary for the defense of the state, the people's rights to bear arms. This has been the subject of one of the greatest pieces of fraud. I repeat the word fraud on the American public by special interest groups that I have ever seen in my lifetime. Now just look at those words. There are only 3 lines to that amendment. A well-regulated militia. If the militia, which was going to be the state army, was going to be well-regulated.
The state army.
Why shouldn't 16 and 17 and 18 or any other age persons be regulated in the use of arms? The way an automobile is regulated. It's got to be registered. That you can't just deal with it at will. So someone asked me recently if I was for or against a bill that was pending in Congress calling for 5 days waiting period, and I said, yes, I'm very much against it. It should be 30 days waiting period, so they find out why this person needs a handgun or a machine gun.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chief Justice Burger. Much appreciated. That is a legal opinion, not a personal opinion, which I want to make sure that we are differentiating between LP Parker and I Am the Liquor. That's what I'm concerned with, like, at least with Heller. Personal opinion that you want to have a gun, cool. You're welcome to want that. That is not what the Second Amendment is about. You have chased off a crackhead that was trying to break my window, and the only reason they stopped was a gun. The only reason they stopped was because you had a gun. That doesn't mean it's the only thing that would stop them. Strongly disagree on what basis? With what? Right, LP Parker, that's a different thing. I'm not going to doubt you that they definitely stopped when you racked your shotgun. That doesn't mean you had to rack your shotgun to stop them, but okay. George Washington would disagree with you. I'm the liquor. He did. Yeah, but he's the one who knew more about what the Second Amendment was for. The problem is he died back way closer to when it was written and what it was designed for. But he knew the people who did. He was part of the discussions. Yeah. He would be familiar with the term keep and bear arms. It makes him have more of a basis than you currently have to argue that. What is your basis for saying that the Second Amendment is intended for fighting a tyrannical government? What do you base that on? My guess is going to be NRA propaganda. No, you're saying why you support it. What is your basis for saying that's what it was written for? Those are two different concepts. It doesn't say anything about a tyrannical government in there. You want to try me with the language? It's a pretty short amendment. Oh, of a free state. Ah, I see what you mean. Okay. For the security of a free state. Uh-huh. And why is that about a tyrannical government that you are part of as opposed to a foreign government that is invading? I mean, that's another thing that I'm concerned with Arrow Pulsioner. Like, it does the argument about like combating a tyrannical government doesn't even make any sense. Owning a gun isn't going to help you against a tyrannical government. So the security of a free state is more often a question of, are we secure in our own borders against an invading excuse me, an invading violent threat from the outside, not from the imaginary government we made up to rule over our states. So what is to say that this is not talking about a foreign government, not a federal government? It stopped Japan from invading? How did it stop Japan from invading? It's not going to hurt either? Well, then that's a different argument. But that's not what it's for. Can you pop a few shots off at a U.S. military tank that's bearing down on your house? Sure, it's not gonna hurt. I mean, it might hurt. Like maybe they wouldn't use lethal force with their tank. I don't know. That seems like they're already threatening lethal force. But if you get a few shots off, it's not gonna hurt. It's not gonna help. I'm not even saying a tank would help you. Your problem is that you're facing a military. One tank's not going to help you. The number of tanks you could operate is not going to help you. I imagine in a lot of places it is illegal to own a tank. Or at least to operate one. A gun behind every blade of grass. What is that? I'm not familiar with that quote. But I doubt that had anything to do with Japan not invading the United States. When Russia invaded Ukraine, how many of the people who now hold guns in their hands do you think didn't own guns? Didn't personally have guns? Do you think it's difficult for a state to get guns in the hands of the people who don't have guns if they need to fend off an invader? The fact that individuals own guns is not really an issue when it comes to invading a nation. A state will arm its people. But I noticed that nobody has really contended with my biggest beef with Heller at all, which is that's not what that language means. Keep the right to keep and bear arms is a military term. It is used when referring to what militias do, not referring to what people do. So they needed more guns. What is a person going to do with more guns than they can handle at once? Who determines what a militia is? What do you mean? You're down to talk about Trump not being pro-service? Okay. Well, give me a minute here. I want to finish talking about Second Amendment before we go into another subject. One second here, guys. What peoples have been disarmed and not been tyrannized? I don't know that I have enough information to answer that question. It's kind of a different question. What determines what a militia is the intent of the authors of that. When it comes to writing law, you have to go back and interpret the intent of the people who wrote it at the time that they wrote it. So that's the problem with Heller, is that it ignores major arguments about what the initial authors meant. You have to go back and look for evidence of what the words meant at the time that they were used. So every single time a people or state disarms themselves, they experience tyranny. Well, it sure would be great if we had a federal system that we could just remove tyrannical elements from it. Problem is we haven't given ourselves enough tools to do that with. Let's pull up the actual Heller opinion real quick. Hello? Hello? There we go. The prefatory clause. As we will describe below, the militia in colonial America consisted of a subset of the people, those who were male, able-bodied, and within a certain age range, reading the Second Amendment as protecting only the right to keep and bear arms. In an organized militia, therefore, fits poorly with the operative clause's description of the holder of that right as the people, except that oftentimes the people were referred to as a collective and not as a group of individuals. What you're advocating for with repealing... Whoa, dude, who said repeal the Second Amendment? Who said that? Disarming the people is giving the state a monopoly on violence. Sounds like you're assuming a lot of things, jumping into the stream real quick there, Sensei Walk. Nobody said that. So if the words of freedom of press meant written parchment, then TV news isn't protected. That assumes that you're jumping in there to say that what they meant was we are protecting these specific forms of speech, rather than they were saying we are protecting all forms of speech that can be taken. But, so right here, Scalia is saying that militia does not mean an organized militia. So let's see how that is addressed further throughout the opinion. And also I need to change the window here. Currently, my only argument is that the independent right to keep and bear arms was invented by the Supreme Court in 2008 in the Heller opinion. That's what we're discussing. I do think it would be better if we all got rid of our guns, but I'm not going to advocate for that from a political position. I'm not going to advocate for that from a political position. I mean, if y'all want to convince me that I shouldn't hold that opinion myself, then sure, go for it. I think it's incredibly silly to think that if the American government wanted to tyrannize its people with the American military, that having guns on your property would somehow stop the American government from doing that. I think you're living in a fantasy land. I wouldn't do that. I would depend on constitutional means to hold a government accountable. I would not require physical violence to do that. I think that's a more effective means. If you make the military swear an oath to the Constitution and maybe separately to their states and not to the American president, then if you use the constitutional functions that are in place to have the states or the Congress, or, you know, you can have multiple avenues of doing it, but if you have some body, some political body that has the power to remove the rights from the president to issue orders to the military, then as soon as you issue those orders, then suddenly you have a much weaker military, because you're going to have people that refuse to mobilize against their own people, and that they will have the legal basis to refuse to do so. That's more effective than a dude out in Idaho popping shots from his cabin. You know, it's legal to it's not effectively legal to refuse an unlawful order. It is not only legal, it is also mandated to refuse an unlawful order, but it is not effectively possible to do so. You'll have rare cases where people do, but in most cases where it would be called for, they will not. Dude, Sensei, if the military wants to tyrannize you, they don't have to enter your home. That is not necessary. Well, that's very bold of you. That is a great stance. Are you a military member? Are y'all both servicemen slash women slash service days? Hell yeah, I am the liquor. Wow. In what cases did that happen, Sensei Walk? If you don't mind me asking. And my concern is less the situations where people do uphold it, but the situations where they don't. Where all orders are presumed lawful unless proven otherwise. So in cases in which you would be court-martialed for refusing an order, you would then have to prove that it was unlawful. They don't have to prove that it was lawful. It was presumed so. So the onus falls on you to have the evidence for that. So in the situation where you have to decide whether or not you are going to follow an order, then you have to sit there and go, well, am I going to be able to prove that this is the case? Maybe you don't, but I imagine there are many service people out there who that's a very terrifying thing to go through, considering that you could be discharged and you could lose your benefits. You could lose your livelihood. Go wash my car. That's great, but what are you going to do in it? Like, has that ever come up in a combat scenario? Is that a... I mean, thank goodness for that. But now we're talking about mobilizing the military in American cities. Who wants to educate me on an Article 15, considering my lack of familiarity with the military world? Happy to have so many veterans in here today. Thank you guys for your service. Thank you for defending my right to burn an American flag. And well, so what is the... my understanding as a layperson is there is a big... how do I want to describe that? There is an atmosphere of... damn. Where you'd get a lot of negative a lot of negative attention for refusing an order. Is that not the case? What about the double tap, Sensei Walk? I don't see much of an investigation going on in there. Ooh. Matty Morphosis, I would love to take up that subject. We are deep in military / 2A subject matter right now. If you want to jump up on a call, Maddie, like on the Discord, I will prioritize people that I can talk to voice. When the AC-130 got spun up downrange, they had a military lawyer tell them whether a target was legal or not, plus some crazy rank overseeing the operation. They take this shit very seriously. Yes, that's the one I'm talking about. An unlawful order. See, he literally says the phrase keep arms was not prevalent in the written documents of the founding period that we have found. That's straight up bullshit. The amicus briefs had tons of examples. Maybe he means keep arms independent of the phrase keep and bear arms. Yeah, that's what it looks like he means. Okay. Well, I appreciate that, Maddie. I love entertaining anybody that comes in. At least I hope I'm entertaining to some degree. And I'm happy to be educated by our veterans here in chat today, because a lot of the time the debate topics, as you may be able to tell, are opportunities to prompt you to teach me things that I don't know about. I have some opinions on them, but that does not mean that I consider myself to be extremely well versed on them. So I'm happy to not know things and explain that I don't know things. I hope other people are willing to take that step too, because I think it's something that is shamefully rare these days. Tell you if they crimed? Well, the fun thing, Sensei Walk, is that Congress doesn't know if they crimed. Because the military is supposed to give Congress evidence, or at least the executive branch is supposed to give them evidence of justification for those kinds of attacks, and none has been given. I like to learn stuff, dude. Haha, I tricked you into teaching me things. Ha ha ha. Alright. Well-regulated militia. In United States v. Miller, 1939, we explained that the militia comprised all males physically capable of acting in concert for the common defense. That definition comports with founding-era sources. See Webster. The militia of a country are the able-bodied men organized into companies, regiments, and brigades, and required by law. Okay, that says something different than what you just said. Near 500,000 of citizens with arms in their hands. The militia of the state, that is to say, of every man in it able to bear arms. Petitioners take a seemingly narrower view of the militia, stating that militias are the state and congressionally regulated military forces described in the militia clauses. Article 1, Section 8, clauses 15 through 16. Okay, well, now we gotta jump subjects again. U.S. Constitution. What'd they say? Section 8, clauses 15 through 16. To provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. To provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. Here's another Really good example of a really shitty legal take from Scalia. When in a legal document, you make reference to a word, and you use that word a certain way, if that word is used later in the same legal document, it is to be presumed to be used the same way unless you are given cause to believe that it is being used a different way. So for Scalia, I mean, I guess I need to continue reading his argument, but my immediate assumption here would be to say it is a reasonable presumption to say that the amendment uses the word militia the same way the Constitution does, because the amendment is the Constitution. There's no video of this drone strike. The double tap is what the media is calling it, unless they release the video after. I can only. It is not disputed by the executive branch that there was one strike, then there were survivors. The survivors were clinging to the remains of the boat, and a second strike was ordered. That is not disputed by the executive branch. That is a violation of international law, and as I understand it, also of American law. It is also just a murder. It is a basic premise of criminal law that you cannot meet non-lethal force with lethal force. Sorry, troops? Whoa, where did troops come into this? We're also not at war? And the president cannot initiate acts of war on his own behalf, like on his own initiative. Reagan said we are with drugs. Well, it's a good thing that a president cannot declare war. Okay. Terrorist has a definition. People selling drugs, people running drugs are not terrorists. Also, you would still have to prove it. The executive branch cannot exercise force of its own accord. It can't do that. What about drug runners that kill people? They can then be met with lethal force while they are engaged in the act of killing people or threatening to kill people. On what basis, Sensei? What is your legal basis for saying that the executive branch can initiate force on its own initiative? Arrow Pulsner, but they can't legally. People can do all sorts of illegal stuff if they are not prevented from doing so, but that doesn't make it more legal. Sure they do. Because I, as a citizen, am upset when those in power are not obeying what is legal. So then I will come forward and I will advocate for change to remove the people who are doing illegal things. So yes, legalities matter. Is it the Patriot Act that does it? There are two separate post 9/11 acts that allow presidents to engage in military actions with terrorists, and that's because Congress has declared those acts of war to be legal. That doesn't mean that all uses of that act are legal. I would say that almost every act that every presidential act that has used those acts as the legal basis has been an illegal use of it. Even Obama did it, because those acts have language that is very confined. They are narrow. They are supposed to allow the president to do specific things, and then a president will come in and say, well, I'm using the act to do it, and then they just, like, Congress just looks the other way as the president does that. That doesn't make it more legal. It is not legal at that point. It is a violation of the law as written. Yeah, AUMF. I remember going over that in law. I think that was that a con law class? I think that was a con law class. The only reason legalities are enforceable are due to threat of force if violated. Yes. And so that's why I think, in particular, the organization of the American political system is particularly fascinating, and why I use it in my advocacy for constitutional convention, is because the way that we have organized ourselves as like 50 independent bodies that make up a federal government actually gives us a lot of power if we use it correctly. The states can just erase the federal government. If the states get together to do it, they can just erase the federal government and make a new one. So the states, 38 states could get together and say Donald Trump no longer has authority to issue orders to the military. That is its own kind of force. So here I sit in my chair, being a person that looks at the federal government and goes, it's doing illegal things and no one's stopping them. Okay, that doesn't mean it doesn't matter. I can still sit here and go, well, we should be taking action to stop it. Here's a different way we can do that. So I'm going to advocate for that other way, that if we want to hold these people responsible, which I do, I don't know if other people do, because, hey, I just think killing random people in the ocean without evidence is a bad thing. Wow. What a surprise. Yeah, well, I've so glossed over this with you, Sensei. Like, this is the most... Basically what you're saying is, if I'm not misunderstanding you, let's just trust the executive branch on who they're killing in the Caribbean. Which is an incredibly un-American thing to say. Giving any kind of trust to the executive branch is incredibly un-American. The executive branch is not to be trusted. It is to be restrained. It is to be directed. It is to be investigated. It is to be held to account. Because executive force is the most terrifying thing in existence. Yeah. So fuck them. That's just how they are justifying it. So fuck them. I don't know how that helps you, Sensei, but, you know, you're welcome to that opinion. Go for it. Hold your guns hoping to shoot down a tyrannical government someday. Yes, I am the liquor. I don't have TDS. I don't have TBS. I don't have any kind of S other than just tyranny derangement syndrome. I don't like bad things that presidents do. I don't like bad things that that executive powers do. I don't like bad things that politicians do. I think there should be more mechanisms for accountability in our system. I think if we had more mechanisms for accountability, then more people would trust the government, more people would be involved in the government, and we would have a better functioning government. Don't states rely too much on federal funding to do anything of the sort? No. Because the federal treasury belongs to the states collectively. So if the states made, like, the states can't, like, When I say they can unmake the federal government, they can't unmake federal government. They can unmake the federal government. All the states are still bound by the contract that is the Constitution. That is why no state can leave on its own. 38 states have to agree if a state wants to be independent. That is the contract we put ourselves in. So at the very least, we have a piece of paper that is itself the federal government. You can't get rid of that. You could, but also all this, like 38 states would have to agree to get rid of it. So 38 states would have to agree what happens with the federal treasury, but the states still could decide what's done with it. The states could decide that the federal government has no right to the federal treasury anymore. The states could come together and say there will be an independent commission that is appointed by the states that will from now on control how the federal treasury is run. The states can reinvent the government in any way they want to. They can disband the Supreme Court on a whim. How else would you... I've already gone over it. If the federal government is being tyrannical, I think the United States, in the way they have set themselves up as 50 independent organizations of power, are the best set up system to stop a tyrannical federal government. Because what you're talking about is people who are taking orders from people. And these people have to understand where their chain of command comes in. And you guys can tell me how I'm wrong about this, but what happens, imagine, the President of the United States, y'all are the perfect people to test this with. The US President orders the military to invade Portland to manage an insurrection that has gotten out of control. And the states are upset about this. For whatever reason, we don't need to go into the details of the why, but the president is issuing these orders. And the president refers to this act, and for these reasons, I can move the military in, and I can have you engage with American citizens who are conducting an uprising. So 38 states get together, and they say, from this point on, we are having a hiatus on the chain of command as it is currently understood. We are going to put this person in Congress in charge of military orders for the time being until we figure things out. But at this moment, the office of the president is disbanded. Donald Trump is no longer president of the United States. He no longer has any control over the military. Neither does the vice president. The entire office of the presidency is disbanded from this moment on until the states find a replacement. Now, or they could say, for the time being, each individual soldier will respond to orders from their governor specifically. So now, you're a service member, you're in the military. Donald Trump is still trying to issue orders telling you to go to Portland to perform specific acts in Portland. But now your governor is issuing a different command. You are receiving orders from a different person through your governor that says, no, stand down, come home. How does that work with you guys? I don't understand why the why is important. You have an oath, so you know where your chain of command comes from. You can choose to rebel against the military and do your own thing, but that's just a personal choice. That I'm asking about if you are obeying the chain of command, if you are obeying your oath, if you are obeying the Constitution, what would you do as a service member? That Arrow Pulsner, that's no longer true. As I pointed out, we have now amended the Constitution to say that service members are taking orders from their governors. That is something states can do. They can amend the Constitution to do that. Well, Sensei Walk, at this point, I'm telling you, the amendment says that the president, that the amendment is the Constitution. The amendment says that the president can no longer issue orders to service people. So if you listen to the president, you are thereby violating the Constitution. You think so, Arrow Pulsner? I'm pretty sure it would be pretty clear on the news. The states remove power from the president. The states claim authority over their service members. The states are telling their service members to come home. Yeah, I am the liquor. I trust the news with discretion. Sensei Walk, the point is, can it be done? And if you have a tyrannical federal government, you could get 38 states together to come up with something to do about it. That is sufficient power to stop a tyrannical government. Well, Arrow Pulsner, now we're just talking about like the details of it. The point is, could the states fashion things in such a way as to say, we are going to cut off the chain of command with the federal government so that the federal government doesn't have the power to issue orders to the American military to attack states anymore? Practically being a shit show would be way better than the federal government having direct command of the military and continuing to do it. If you cause some level of chaos in the military where some service people are like, well, I'm going to listen to my state because that's what the Constitution requires me to do, then we have improved the situation. I am the liquor. Again, we're talking about the specifics. The question is, do the states have the power? Uh-oh. I need to figure out when we're reconnected again. Y'all let me know when we're reconnected again, because OBS said we disconnected. Check, check. Are we back? Are we back? Are we back? Check, check. Anybody? Somebody confirm we're back? I got disconnected. Somebody confirm we're back. I really want to respond to what Sensei Walk said. Restart to... No, Windows, don't restart my computer. Are we back? Anybody? Hello. Just looking for confirmation from somebody that we're back. Looks like we're back. It says I have zero viewers. I don't know. Anybody? Okay, now it says I've been up for 2 minutes. Wow. Thanks for that, OBS. Stream is unstable. Why is my stream unstable? Maddie, Morphosis, are you still here? Is anybody here? Do I have it? Okay, I've got 13 viewers. Are we back? I think we're back. Hello? Anybody? Can someone confirm we're back? OBS totally dropped the stream. Hello? Is anyone there? Waiting for confirmation from somebody that we're back. I'm going to change this so that it asks somebody to... Oh my god, what happened? Whatever, I'm going to jump back to this anyway. Are we back? Somebody. says I've got 13 viewers. I haven't seen confirmation from anybody that we're back. Do I need to close the chat and bring it back? Oh my god, my guys. It's... okay, I'm here. I see you. I needed to close chat and open it again. Okay, forgive me. Still learning how to be a Twitch streamer. Okay. And now everybody's colors in the chat are completely different, so now I'm going to be very confused. Yep, government's onto him now. NSA on your ass. Hey man, the president wants me dead because I mentioned that in my video that our troops are supposed to disobey unlawful orders. He wants people dead for that. So, I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, Sensei, you mentioned something that is very concerning to me. You said, doesn't the Constitution say the president is the commander-in-chief? Do you know what an amendment is? Also, you said Congress would have violated the Constitution. In this case, it would be the states. And now I'm concerned because since I popped out chat, I haven't seen another post, so now I'm worried that my pop-out chat is just not working, period. Nope. Nope, just no new posts. There we go. How are you going to amend the preamble? What do you mean the preamble? You can literally amend any part of the Constitution. It takes 38 states. Takes 3/4 of the states. Oh, I can get rid of this. What? But what do you mean the preamble? We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America? What? Sensei Walk, I think you're, like, fundamentally confused on how this works. Every amendment is a change to the Constitution itself. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 is not the preamble. That is Article 2. Any part of the Constitution can be amended. That's what an amendment is. The problem with your scenario is that active duty falls under federal control. If this active duty falls under federal control only because the states said so. So whatever the states say goes, as long as it is done under the process of amending the Constitution. Sensei Walk, it would only be done in the case where there was a tyrannical government that was using the federal military against the states. I am saying that that would be the only context in which that would ever be done. And I don't think it's that wild to think that if the American military is literally marching through the states to attack states, that states might go, hold on, whoa, hey, hold on. That may be so, but I hope it's not the case. It could be done. And this is what I'm here advocating for, is this should be a tool that we use. It shouldn't be that wild to have the states come together and be like, hey, the federal government's not working the way we want it to. We should fix it, because this is what we did. This is what we did in 1787. This is what we did with the Articles of Confederacy. Couldn't get slavery passed without a civil war. Well, they definitely couldn't get 38 states to agree on that. But if the president is attacking states, I would hope the states could kind of get behind. What do you mean that's not how the military works? It is how the military would work. LP Parker, how do you determine how the military works? What do you look to know how the military works? Here, let's look at Article 5 too, because Article 5 is fun. Article 5 is what this channel's about. Oh, let's pull it back up. Back over to the work page. All your boss? And where does your boss look to? You just saying it goes up the chain of command? If that were true, then you would never be able to determine what an unlawful order is. Thank you. That is my only point, is that is how that would work. And that I think the United States is particularly nicely situated to be able to deter a tyrannical federal government because of that fact. I think because of that fact, your scenario of a tyrannical federal government that could bear down on the American people, that the American people would need guns for, is an impossibility. Because if a president just started marching troops through the states would sooner have 38 of them get together and cut that off than have that just happen. All your bosses are federal. The governor of the state I'm in has no say in what the order is. Except LP Parker, the states can change that. The states are literally able to change that. The states can get together and say, all your bosses are now state bosses. They can do that. That is within the power of the states to do. We're talking about legal theory. Okay. I am the liquor. I don't care. Whatever they come up with. Whatever the states say in the amendment. The state of residence prior to enlisting. Whatever. However they want to do it. They may have a tiered system. They may have an option. Right, but you are also talking theory. You are talking about if we faced a tyrannical American government, we need our guns. And I'm sitting here telling you that's not gonna fucking happen because the states can just stop it. You are talking legal theory. Let's clear up any confusion about what Article 5 is capable of doing. But I assume the person who was here earlier asking about cancel culture and Article 1, or the First Amendment, I assume they're not here anymore. I could have answered that question very quickly. The First Amendment only protects you from the power of the state, not from individuals. That's what the right is for. because cancel culture is itself a practice of free speech, so that is also protected. Okay. Article 5. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses... shut up, music. I'm talking over here. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes. Here we go. Amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof. Provided that no amendment, these are the only constraints on what amendments can do. The only constraints on amending the Constitution. No amendment which may be made prior to the year 1808 shall in any manner affect the 1st and 4th clauses in the 9th section of the 1st article. We don't care about that because it's no longer before 1808. So now the only constraint on amendments is that no state can be deprived of equal suffrage in the Senate. Which, in case you were wondering, Sensei Walk, is part of the main body of the Constitution, that every state shall have 2 representatives in the Senate. So this is talking about changes that can be made to the body of the Constitution. The only one we can't do is without the consent of the state. So you can actually do it. Without the consent of the state, you can't reduce it from 2. Actually, no. You just can't make it unequal. You could equally change the representation of all states in the Senate to something else. Sensei Walk, that wouldn't bother me, because my assumption is that the red states also don't want a tyrannical federal government. And my assumption would be that the states would not maintain things that way. They would just figure out how to run a new federal military. If the states agree to tyrannical practicing, then I guess it's just time for me to go find another government. Things have really gone to a shitty place. Oh, hey, Metamorphosis is still here. And individuals would be the private sector? Yes and no. Fun fact, this is one of my debate topic slides. Donald Trump is, as far as the Constitution concerned, Donald Trump is 2 people. Donald Trump is a private citizen, and he has freedom of speech. Donald Trump is also the person holding the office of the President of the United States. That person does not have freedom of speech. The difficulty of the law is determining when a person speaks, which of those people are they? Is it Donald Trump being a private individual, or is it Donald Trump being the President of the United States? And it's pretty clear that when the President of the United States is using a handle that is the official handle of the President of the United States, any of that speech is presidential, and any violating use of that speech would be a violation of somebody's constitutional rights. So, for instance, if God, what are some of the better examples? If Donald Trump says, well, I can just use the one where he threatened death to people. When Donald Trump says it is seditious behavior for Congress people to remind troops that they should defy unlawful orders, and that to repeat the phrase, hang them, George Washington would, that is not protected free speech. That is a violation of free speech on the part of the government of the United States. Does he fall under the UCMJ? I don't know that. What are you saying that that would make a difference with? I wouldn't want a leader of state to not have any limits for what. Yeah, that's because what the state does can violate rights of individuals. I think a phrase that needs to be more commonly used in like just everyday speech among Americans is the legal concept of chilling. I think it used to be more standard practice to speak of chilling in that way. He doesn't fall under the UCMJ. I I bet if I asked an AI, do UCMJ members have free speech? I bet it would say, well, yes, they have free speech, but there are limitations on it. So what about that? He still has, so he has free speech as a private citizen, and he also does not have free speech as the person holding office as the president of the United States. I was talking about chilling. The legal concept of chilling is when government does things to convince you non-legally to not partake in certain rights. So if you are afraid of something happening because you use free speech, then your free speech is being chilled. Even if the government hasn't done anything specifically to violate your free speech, it's still a violation of free speech to make you have cause to not exercise it. Oh, okay. Cool. Okay, I think at this point, guys, I'm gonna wind down. It's Christmas. I'm almost up till 2 a.m. Got things to do with my daughter tomorrow. But I'm gonna wind down on the serious talk before I do my actual sign off. I do want to open the floor for some just more casual chat. If you want to do some Maddie, I've missed you. We've been having serious talk in chat today. It's been nice. I do want to open the floor for casual talk. If anybody wants to talk about anything, I always like to offer. I don't think that we have enough positive engagement with each other on just a general basis. If you want to be proud of yourself for something and you don't have somebody to share that with who can be proud of it with you, I would like to open the floor for you to share that with me. I want to be excited about something with you. I want to what I am losing my words. The ADHD is kicking in. I want to be proud of you for stuff. So if you want somebody to be proud of you for something, I'm happy to share that with you. I will be proud of you. If you just want to be excited, whatever, I'm happy to be here for that. I don't think we have enough. I already said it. Positive engagement. I think we need people to feel okay and safe in their communities, like they have safe places to talk about what they want to and feel uplifted. So just gonna give a few minutes here to say that, and I'm gonna tell you I'm proud of you anyway in the sign off, because that's what I always do. Welcome to Know Nothing Attorney. I'm going to tell you I'm proud of you because I am. Especially you guys, having all these service members in here tonight. This was awesome, guys. Thank you for being here. And I actually feel like I got to talk about stuff that I know to people, like how amendments work. Like that's stuff that not enough people know. I got to talk about Heller tonight, and that was great. Do it. I am the liquor, and hopefully you'll come up on like Discord call at some point. Maybe on a night that you're not drunk, we can talk about shit. Fucking try me, bro. That's totally my attitude. Okay. Well, if there's not something that anybody wants to talk about in their personal life to be excited or interested about, then I will do my sign off. I'm Know Nothing Attorney. I know nothing, so you can too. Because it's only when we embrace that we embrace that we know nothing that we can actually learn anything. And that's what I'm here to do every night, and that's what I want to inspire you guys to do, and I hope you'll come do it with me whenever you have the chance. And as always, I'm proud of you. I don't need to know you personally for that to be real. You deserve to hear it, and it's true. Because life is hard. It's always been hard, and always will be hard. But the way you face every single day, the way you do, is remarkable. So stay remarkable, and I'll see you next time. Merry Christmas, everybody, and Merry Krampus for those of you that don't practice. Thank you, Liquor Man. Y'all all have a good night.